Okay. We are right in the first page. In the order of the pamphlet, it's called Chof Ches. I don't know why. In the other pamphlet, we were in Lamed Aleph. I think it's a misprint, because the next page is Lamed Ches. And Lamed Tes.
Now what they did, look, you see there's a Lamed Zion at the bottom. That's probably the continuation of the Lameds.
Yeah, but how come it's on the bottom? The others are on top.
Yeah, well, the
Okay, fine. We'll still have that. So we are in the middle of the lower section on that page, which begins with Apizer, or Yudches, and we are more or less in the middle, a little below. The line begins with the word hamekabel. So we have been discussing the question that is in the Aytz Chaim. We ask the question, we say that there was a total tzimtzum in order to bring out the kav. And he asked in Aytz Chaim, why was it a total tzimtzum? A total tzimtzum means a total removal of oil, totally. And then the oil has introduced anew with the form in the form of a kav. Why was it total removal? Why did it not occur in a different process? Namely, that the excess oil, that the oil in soif should be concealed, and it should leave over the kav without touching it, leaving it the way it was before, contained in the oil in soif. And this question is based on the principle that we have discussed, that in the oil in soif itself there is also the hamekabel. This is in the form of referred to as eser sphirot hagenuzot. This is the origin of the oil hamekabel. So in order to create the kav as an entity, to bring out the kav as an entity, all you need to do is to remove the encompassing oil in soif, and then you would have the oil hamekabel remaining. That's the sphirot. And that's the question that the Aytz Chaim asks. Now that we have pointed out that the principle of the eser sphirot hagenuzot, we understand the question of the Aytz Chaim. And we are elaborating on this Indian, so to speak, on what we initially thought that was a difficulty with the question. The initial thought is that actually this is a necessity in order to identify the oil hamekabel, just like in Ashpoz HaSeichel. Ashpoz HaSeichel, the seichel that the Rav is mashpia to the hamekabel, is clearly contained within the seichel of the Rav, and yet that seichel of the hamekabel is not identifiable. And in order that the Rav should be able to identify the seichel hamekabel, he has to first conceal totally his own oil, how he use it, and then he is able to identify the seichel hamekabel. Vim Kain, okay, this is this is the preamble to explain the difficulty we have with the question of the Aytz Chaim. The one begins with hamekabel and there's 6 lines from the bottom. Vim Kain, and therefore, lefi zeh, based on this illustration, as we find it in Seichel, Eich hoyo efsher. How was it possible sheyishoir oir hakav mibi sheyisalem hoir legamri? How was it possible that they should remain the oil of the kav without first totally concealing the oil? As we explained in the Moshel, that the Seichel HaTalmid first surfaces by the Rav after he conceals, he restricts himself completely from the Seichel as he perceives it. So he's able to see it from the Talmid's perspective. We discussed this yesterday a little bit. I'm going to discuss it a little bit more. What happens when the Rav totally conceals his own Seichel? Then he is able to see the principle that he wants to bring out, to see it from an angle where there is no error. He projects, how would I explain it to myself if I did not know the truth behind it? And this is where the Seichel HaTalmid surfaces. The Rav has to put himself in the so to speak, in the position of the Talmud, and understand the Seichel from that vantage point. What is the vantage point of the Talmud? That he doesn't have any primary knowledge. The whole phenomenon of the Seichel is totally obtrusive to him. He doesn't know it. He doesn't see it. Let me elaborate a little bit more on this. I hope we follow. We said, we spoke about the day. And we pointed out that day is not light in the simple sense of the word. Day is an all-encompassing state where darkness it cannot interfere. Darkness is not a concern, not a consideration. So someone who is in day, can he possibly explain what light is to someone who is in dark? The only way he can talk to him is say, what's the matter with you? Don't you see what I'm saying? You can't even begin to surmise what's his problem? In order for him to be able to step down and begin to point out to him what vision is, what light is, he has to realize that this light that he is experiencing is not the same light as the Talmud is involved in. The Talmud, in fact, is in the dark. And to him, you have to first begin to point out that, in fact, that he is able to see things. And that the things that he sees are, as we pointed out, at the level of vision, not on the level of touch. Because initially, he verifies things by touch, not by vision. Yes, sir.
I don't know if my question is relevant at this point, but isn't there different levels of Talmidim? There's Talmidim that...
Absolutely.
So isn't the attitude of the Rav changing or variating according to which Talmidim he's
Of course.
talking to?
Of course.
Okay.
When I teach you how to lose,
Uh-huh.
I have to climb up a bit. I teach Handler, I have to stop
Okay,
down.
you're talking about the time being in total darkness.
What?
You're talking about the time being in darkness, in total darkness.
Right, the Talmud on the start, before he has been exposed to Seichel, he is in total darkness. He doesn't know that there is such thing as knowing things without touching it. Like you pointed out, what does a child do when you show him something interesting? What does a child do the first thing?
Puts it in his mouth.
He puts it in his mouth. That's his way of verifying there is something there. He knows things by taste. That's the first thing he does. It takes time for him to realize that there is a faculty called sight, and it is almost as interesting as that of taste. So this is the pshat that the Rav, in order to understand the hamekabel and identify this, the oyer seichel, as it is with the hamekabel. Let me emphasize the word oyer seichel. At the lowest level, as you pointed out, way back when, there is a phenomenal thing with sight that is in the category of oyer, even on the lowest level, in the fact that you are observing and you know this object and you know everything about it without the need of touching it. Touch, that is the level where that object exists. Then there is on the higher level what's called oyer. What is this object about? What is its color? What is its shape? That is on a different level than the touchable element. And the Rav, it is the Rav's duty, and what the Rav is trying to do is alert the Talmud to the oyer of the seichel, not the mitzias of the seichel. In order to do that, the Rav has to eliminate his own oyer ha-seichel, so that he will be able to see how there is oyer related to the touchable part of the mitzias, and begin from there. Okay. So we ask a question on the Aytz Chaim. How does the Aytz Chaim ask why was there a complete removal of the oil in safe? There should have been just a reduction and leaving the car behind. But Hapi Hanal yesh leimar. So we ask the question, but the whole mitzias of the Seichel HaTalmid first surfaces after when there is a total concealment. But according to what we discussed previously in introduction to this, that there is in from eser sphirot hagenuzot. Yesh leimar. Now we can understand, we can explain the question of the Aytz Chaim. Okay, everybody follow this? We're trying to explain, justify the question of the Aytz Chaim. Being that there is a shoyer, there is a root and a source for the oil hakab within the oil in subshilifnei. There is something in oil in subshilifnei that's akin to the oil hakab. Vehein, which is this is the eser hagenuzot. This is the eser sphirot hagenuzot that are contained within the Ein Sof Shelifnei HaTzimtzum. She'ein zeh b'chinas ho'atzmos de'ein sof ha'bli gvul. This in the eser sphirot hagenuzot is not the etzem of the Ein Sof ha'bli gvul. The Ein Sof, we have 4 lines from the bottom. This eser sphirot hagenuzot is not bechinas. Bechinas means it does not allude to the asmos of Ein Sof ha'bli gvul, even though it's contained therein, but it's in a different category, it has a different message, a different significance than the Ein Sof ha'bli gvul. Ein Sof ha'bli gvul does not have the element of eser sphirot. Eser sphirot, what is eser sphirot? Eser sphirot is the method by which you get to know things. Ein Sof ha'bli gvul, there is not the method by which to get to know things, because there is not the element of not knowing. So the Ein Sof ha'bli gvul, there is not the inyan from eser sphirot. Rak, only ma sheklulim b'Ein Sof. It is only that the eser sphirot are also incorporated and contained within the Ein Sof. The Ein Sof also has that, but that is not what the essence of the Ein Sof is. We discussed this principle yesterday. And we have to understand that the Ein Sof has internally the ability to also giving off a limited perception. But in the Ein Sof there is that ability. This is ma sheklulim b'Ein Sof. We pointed out, I'm always anxious that we really relate to what we're saying. Pointed out that the oil has seichel. There's a metzius of the seichel, there's the oil has seichel. When you see things, you see the gashmis of the thing. But then there is the oil element. The oil element is that you see something, a gashmi, and it does not demand that you touch it. But the gashmi consists of touch. And here you're seeing something, a gashmi, and you say, I don't need to touch it. And it can be at a distance from me, which is totally illogical, that I should relate to a gashmi at a distance. And it should be real to me. Can you taste something from a distance? Who has a taste for taste? Can you experience fish or smoked fish from a distance? You have to put it in your mouth and then it becomes smoked fish. And yet here is a faculty of such finesse that you can see a dover gashmi from a distance and it's real. Is it Gashmi or is it not Gashmi? The answer is, it is Gashmi, but Gashmi has an element that is super Gashmi, because it's also a creation. It has a reality that is not Gashmi based. It is godly based. It is there because God said, let it be.
How does this explain the eser sphirot hagenuzot being not being the bechinas of not being what is it in the Ayin Safe, I believe it was. Sorry.
Okay, so here's the thing. So as we pointed out, when we talk about sight, which is one of the essence, which is chokhmah, like part of the eser sphirot, part of the eser sphirot, a method of getting to know things at a distance, in the dark. There you are mispoiled. You know, look at this. I can see this from a distance. It's in two different places, it's over Gashmi, and I can see it, and I can relate to it. But when you are taken even in our world, but when you say daylight, day encompasses everything that is within the world. Day says, by the way, points out that the world is not a separate entity. Day is, as we said, this is a godly presence. Godly presence includes everything. I'm not surprised at all that I'm seeing it, because I'm seeing it and from a different vantage point, not from a worldly vantage point, but from a godly vantage point. Like I pointed out many times in the past, if I show this, is it perplexing? How come you see it? How come it's in the air? Is it a wonder? Is that something? So, let me see. Let me verify how it flies. It flies because it's being held up. This is how things are in the godly perception of the world. Everything is there because it's being held up by its creator. It's no wonder. That is when you are in day. But when you are in light, in dark, nothing is held up. Then you have to identify each thing, and identify each thing by touch. Verify what's holding it up. It's a completely different reality.
Yesterday you mentioned this by saying...
Let me just finish this.
Yeah.
Therefore, in order for the Rav to be able to identify the seichel, the oil seichel of a Talmid, he has to first conceal his own oil seichel and kind of project, how would it be if I didn't have this view, this oil seichel? How would I then understand what I see? There's an interesting story with eser. I told you many times.
And he closes up.
Huh? Yeah, the eser was a very poor man. He was a tremendous. Eser was eser. But his father-in-law was a well-to-do person, and Ezra, what's going on with him? He says, my mazel is just like that. I have to be poor. So his father-in-law just couldn't accept it and says, let me test him out, see what's going on. So he took a very valuable coin and put it right there in the path where the Knesset has to pass by. There's no way he can miss it. Let me see, he says he has a muzzle like that. Let me see. So he put this coin right on this path. The Knesset walked out of his house and started walking towards this medrash, whatever it is, and he's thinking, he's thinking, Rabbeinu Shalom, what a wonderful thing that you have blessed us with sight. It's a phenomenal thing. How would it be if I didn't see? What kind of experience would that be? Let me test it out. So he goes ahead and he closes it and he walks by the coin. So his father says, "You're right. You've proven the point."
Yesterday you said that the day includes light. In other words,
this we talking. I was trying to explain the principle of eser, sphirot, hagenuzot.
Yeah, I understand that as a fact. It does, but what is the Ayin of eser, sphirot, hagenuzot?
Right. We'll go a step down a bit and talk on a morally level. A multi-billionaire. He does not know that bread costs money. Like the Queen of England said, no bread, let him eat cake. Doesn't know there is such thing as a lack of anything. You have to have the means to get it. The thing is there automatically, somehow. Within this wealth, nonetheless, is there a means to buy a pound of bread or not? Are you going to take $1 million in your pocket to go and buy a pound of bread? You would not. In other words, within $1 million, there's also $5. Even, in other words, if one would focus in and try to understand the next guy, he will be able to identify, actually there is $5 also, not just $1 million. I brought it down to dollars and cents. In other words, as we pointed out, in daylight, the fact that I could see without having to touch it is not a wonder. This is not what I'm thinking about. This is not what I'm trying to understand, the wonder of it. It's a completely different wonder, a completely different reality. But within that, there is also the wonder of the Oil HaSeichel Shel HaTalmid.
And is that because of the shleimus of the Atmos, the fact that it has also included in the
Yes and no, but I know what you're referring to. The shleimus of the Atmos is not the fact that there is that presence, but the fact that he is able to remove and to identify it. Let me explain to you what I mean. This multi-billionaire, and then there is a king, who is in a different category altogether. The multi-billionaire only knows his billions. He's not confronted by the impoverished in his neighborhood with the fact that they don't have what to eat. The king, on the other hand, he's got uncountable, he doesn't have billions, he's got just everything. But he also has these subjects who are hungry. That is the principle all-encompassing. So the Ayin, like you said, because of Gvul, because he's got everything. This everything is tzaddik shleimus ha'atzmos. Not that he has the ability, but that he has a cognizance. That is able to reduce it and bring it out. That's a shleimus ha'atzmos.
That's the Ayin of the eser sphirot hagenuzot?
That's right. What are we up to here? Just enough to point out where we're up to. All right, so we are at the end of the fourth line from the bottom. This is not the beginners who atzmos of the Ayin Sof, habli gvul. It is only that clearly in Be'erin Sof. And from the perspective and in comparison to this bechina and to this madrego, or hakav who bechinas gilui hahelem. The hakav is has the relationship to that in the form of gilui hahelem. Gilui hahelem means revealing that which is initially concealed. As we explained Sunday, I think, the principle of gilui hahelem, that if, again, an extremely simple illustration, if it's dark, everything is there, and then you bring light in, and now all of a sudden, everything becomes visible. Not just what you're looking at, but everything becomes visible. The fact that everything becomes visible we have to kind of project. It is not due to the fact that light now shines on each item individually. That is the physical light. But in terms of gilui hahelem, of day, nothing is being revealed individually. It's just there's no helem. Gilui hahelem. It reveals it in the same true state because as it was in the helem.
Is the point here that the gilui hahelem is only in respect to the level of the eser sphirot hagenuzot, not the Orin Sof habli gvul? Is that
right?
Yeah,
but that's right. But I'm trying to at least understand the term gilui hahelem.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's not bringing something new. It's showing what's there.
If you explain something to somebody, is that gilui hahelem, or you just explaining to him? He knows it not the same way as you know it, and he doesn't know it in your brain. He knows it in his own brain.
Depends what you're explaining to him. Just giving him information. It's not gilui hahelem.
If you switch on the light,
mm-hmm.
and you see the tables, are you seeing tables independent of the room?
No.
You're seeing the tables as the reality, part of the reality of the room. The same reality as it was. Doesn't mean gilui hahelem. Why are tables there in the first place?
Because of the room.
This is a human dwelling. There's a reality to these tables. That reality is not revealed. It's not being produced. It's revealed. This is the significance of Gilei Ha'olam. Like you said, Mitzad Shlemus U'atzmus, that's where there is eser sphirot. Not something limited. Okay, this is it. For this morning.
Sama